Hello, and welcome back to another episode of The Spirit of Creating. And today I wanted to talk about the idea of detoxing from other people's opinions about your art and what you create. And this idea came because there's nothing as vulnerable as making a piece of art and then sharing it with the world. And it's almost like sharing a journal entry and then putting it out there for the world to see, and then comment, like, follow, unfollow, troll. Anything can happen once you put your piece of art out there. And there's a double-edged sword to it. We can put our work out there and share it. And I'm talking about things like social media, really. And we can get loads of likes and comments, and that's great. But we don't want to use that then as a motivating force to continue creating art, because one day you might post something and it could be tumbleweed and no comments come in, no likes, no follows. And then does that mean you're so demotivated you just won't make art anymore? And the same goes for if you create something and you show it to someone and say, what do you think? And you take their opinion on board. And it can obviously be negative, positive, or anything nuanced in between. But if you're going to take those opinions seriously, especially if they're from people that aren't necessarily in that field or aren't necessarily choosing that career path or don't really create on their own, then you're going to take somebody's opinion and let it kind of mix in with your own ideas. And it could either create encouragement, but it could also create prevention. And what I'm kind of getting towards is we want to really be creating just from our own inner guide. We don't really want to be abdicating that responsibility to anyone outside of us, whether it's Instagram, TikTok, or your aunt next door. Nobody else should really have an opinion on whether you make art or not, and the type of art that you make. That should wholly be your responsibility and your domain. And then what anyone else makes of what you create is entirely up to them. And we have to build up a sense of self, artistic self, and integrity with ourselves, that irrespective of everyone's opinion, whether it's absolutely wonderful and everyone loves what you do, or whether it's met with utter disdain and people can't stand what you do, we have to be able to stand in our own integrity to know that we're going to carry on creating art and engaging in the creative process, irrespective of how the outside world views us and our art. And I think that's why it's so important, especially now, because we engage so much with social media to share our work. And we are asking, without intentionally asking, for people to share their opinions about what we've just created. And when we're on a platform that we're sharing, of course, it's open to interpretation, it's open to opinion giving. That's what they're there for. But we have to be very aware of not then just being so like the wind and being swept along with everyone else's opinions, so much so that it affects the art we make, or it prevents us from making it in the first place, because it's a vulnerable act in the first place. And then we share it, and then we take on people's opinions, and that can really play around with our own sense of self and our own sense of art that we're making. So before you create art and then ask someone else for their opinion, have an opinion about the art and your artistic process yourself, and hold yourself accountable in a way that is solely down to you and isn't swayed by the opinions of others. Because we're all open to constructive criticism. We're all open to a guide to saying you could do this a bit more like this, or you could refrain from doing that. But it would not be above your own opinion of what you create. Your own opinion should be the most important one that you hold, because you're the one that creates and you're the one that wants to keep on creating. So you need to be the one that can guide yourself, even in choppy waters, when you've put a post out there or you've shared a piece of art that means a lot to you, and someone comes up and says, oh, that isn't really anything I think is worth sharing, or I don't think that's your best piece yet, or I don't really like it. And it can be devastating if everything you create is dependent on the opinion of others. And I think for a long haul journey of creating, if you want to stay in the creative game for whichever reason, then the opinions of others have to hold a lot less weight than they do if you are depending on positive affirmations and likes and comments and such. So that's just something to think about when you're creating. And hopefully, if you haven't and you feel like you're not as resilient to outside opinions as you'd like to be, then a way to go about that is to take some time out and decide what your opinion is, what you value, and why you create and make art. And then share the work and let everyone else have their own opinions that you don't take on as if they're yours. So that's that for today, and I'll be back again next week for some more creative musings.